Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is the RCD Staff and Student Workforce Development Interest Group meeting today. And for the agenda, we're going to be talking about, we have come to us from Purdue University, Allison Bryan Jungels. She's from Regenstrief Center for Healthcare Engineering. She's going to talk a little bit about the student program at Purdue, particular with Lily. And then we're going to get into a conversation about building that full-time practitioner pipeline. What does that look like? And then experiences going from student to FT to a full-time practitioner. We'll have Stephen come in. He'll come in halfway through the presentation. So with that, Allison, would you like to hop in your slides and get started?
Yep, you have to stop sharing before I can share. Thank you. Interesting. One moment. Can you guys see me now? Okay, excellent. Thanks for your time today. I just wanted to share a little bit of information with you, kind of on what we've done with student engagement in relation to a partnership that we have on campus. So we actually have a center on campus known as the Eli Lilly and Company and Purdue University Research Alliance Center. So as the name implies, it's a partnership between Purdue and pharmaceutical partner Eli Lilly. Part of that engagement, it is a big engagement overall, but part of it, and one of the lessons learned from the first few years of it, was that we needed to capitalize on the talent development kind of pipeline that naturally was occurring with some of the research endeavors that we were working on through this partnership. So we started to put a more concerted effort into creating this program, I'll say, and moving it forward. It launched fully in spring of 2024. So we only have a couple semesters under our belt, but we have a lot of lessons learned, a couple of pivots along the ways, and I'll show you kind of where we stand to date. If my slide will now flip. Oh, there we go. All right, so let me show you a little bit of where we stand at the moment, right? This is spring of 2025, so not cumulative, just actually a snapshot from our spring students. We do re-enroll them every semester so that we can track what programs they participate in, because they have the ability to shift as it makes sense for both their curriculum and their timelines, right? And what works for their schedules and commitments. But to date, we have 15 postdocs, 52 PhD students, 3 masters, and 87 undergraduate students. You can kind of see the different departments on campus that are represented in this work. I will say when you're looking at some of you'll see it's very heavy on the engineering and the kind of data science and science perspective. That is more at the graduate level. There's a lot of that in the undergraduate, but definitely when you get to the undergraduate, obviously, first-year engineering students, but you're pulling in also a lot of the health sciences. We do actually have some people from, I'm not sure what he might have dropped this semester. They drop and pick back up, but we had somebody from like a business school, right, that was more interested in the economics perspective of pharmaceuticals. So we work to kind of pair them as it makes sense for their curriculum with the programs available. So on the undergraduate side alone, we have kind of 4 top programs that we've launched. And I'll kind of tell you our process here in a minute, but just to kind of show you some of the things we're doing. We do have an honors college. So we have established what's known as a research generator through the honors college. This is targeting predominantly engineering and science, College of Science students right now, although it does bring in students from all colleges across campus. There is a program known as VIP. They're vertically integrated projects. It stems from the College of Engineering. That's kind of where it's hosted on campus, although it is open to students across campus, regardless of what their major and target areas are. Excuse me. So under, VIP, you're looking at, they do a VIP with LPRC. So it's another way to bring in students into projects. And this is kind of a cohort group that is working in this space. UREPC are students actually from Columbia. It's another program on campus that is looking at pulling in top-tier undergraduates in Columbia from respected and partnered universities to come here for a 6-month engagement, do some targeted research, and it is actually a mechanism for drawing, I'll say, graduate level students into our pipeline, but also how do we send them back to Columbia with the knowledge to progress on their pathway there. Then we also have what's known as SURF, which is Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowships, and it can be either a U.S. or an international-based student in that space. So we have a variety of programs. One not captured here because we're just launching it this semester and we don't have full numbers on it yet, is also a senior design project. So it's a matter of getting connected into the different mechanisms on campus and trying to take advantage of those. When I say the students in these pipelines are actually doing research, they're not just cleaning beakers and sweeping the floors. They're doing very targeted research, often in collaboration with either undergraduate peers or mentors from the graduate school. So there's just a list of titles here. Obviously, again, we're doing it with a pharma partner in this case. So when you look at them, they're going to be heavily pharma and science oriented, although there's a lot of other aspects of them that are factored into it to make it more appealing to a broader student base across campus. These students will have kind of a trajectory of either going on to graduate school to get more post-secondary education that can make them more of a niche resource that would go into industry. Some do, obviously, stay in the graduate level and go on to maintaining academia, which is a benefit as well. And sometimes they are students that are just getting more tailored experience so that when they go into the workforce, they just have more skills under their belt. Makes them more marketable. So that's currently where we stand right now. Like I said, we're 3 semesters in. Let me tell you a little bit about how we got here. We started with an environmental scan across campus, right? We do not want to recreate any programs that already exist, be competing for talent. So we reached out to everything we could find. Again, senior design projects, things like the vertically integrated projects, the research generators, the SURF programs that are existing. There's several more that we checked as well. Understanding everything from their student eligibility. I only target computer science students, or I only target this type of student. Okay, but does that have a fit for us? What are their timelines? We have people recruiting now for fall, research stuff, which is okay, but the timeline's kind of off cycle for what we need. So it's a matter of figuring out who and what and when, where and how, and all those types of things. Are there costs associated with it? Interestingly, many of our senior design projects have costs associated with it. Obviously, in materials, you would expect that, but sometimes they have additional costs because it's got an industry partner name on it, right? And that's how they function. So we had to work through some of those challenges. I would say then one of the biggest tricks is scanning your faculty that are going to participate in these and understand where do they already engage, because it's easier if you're starting with something they're comfortable with. And then also where would they like to expand into, right? So we had some that were interested in expanding into the Columbian program, but weren't sure how to. And so us acting as a pairing mechanism, I'll say, to kind of just be the conduit, in the pipeline, opened up some doors for some of our faculty who've been quite pleased with that output. We started with small initiatives one semester. We're going to do one of these and one of these and one of these and nothing big. We're going to do 10 to 15 students and see if we can even manage that. See what the interest was, what the pipeline was. So for example, the John Martinson Honors College program with the HEAL generator, we expected, maybe 15, 20 students. It's 65 that showed up to the call out. Caught us by surprise. So quickly saw the students were hungry for opportunities for research, especially in something related to an industry effort. So, it was a good opportunity for them. We were impressed beyond all means of the intelligence of the students and the questions. We have freshman students asking us about intellectual property rights and how is that transferred? And I'm pretty sure when I was that age, I didn't even know what intellectual property was. So, we're not talking a run-of-the-mill student, but an advanced student in that case. We did the small initiatives and we solicited a lot of feedback. Told them real up front, we're piloting stuff, let us know what worked, what didn't, and then we're scaling and adjusting accordingly. Some things that were clear winners from our students: lab crawl. I mean, the students were hungry the undergraduate students especially, to be in the lab. Now, just like to do a walkthrough. And what are we doing in this lab? I will say this after hours is what is key, because most of the students, obviously as undergrads, are quite full during the day with their classwork. But we also found that having the lab crawls managed by the graduate students was more successful than having the lab crawl managed by the professors, because they were closer in age, so it felt more peer-to-peer, and they were more open to ask questions. And like we do one lab. We tried to do multiple labs in a night. It got a little hard to coordinate. And people were lingering in some labs and not necessarily moving forward because they were enjoying the engagement. So now we spread it out. So it's not, like one big evening, but several. And it's one lab here or 1 and 2 labs there. Professional engagement with industry representatives. So even though we have Eli Lilly in the name, we don't limit ourselves to Eli Lilly, right? So we had a biotech company come in the other day, and they were talking about their devices and what could be done and how they, as an organization, continue to do internal skill development and improvements and how they think about things. It was really well received from the students. It's just another way for them to engage. Obviously, hands-on research is critical. Eli Lilly has been generous and allowed us to tour their facilities. We're in West Lafayette. They're in Indianapolis. It's an hour bus ride down and pretty easy to coordinate. But any other ones as well, they just want to see what it looks like if this is something they were going to do in their future, and they want to get hooked. So I appreciate that. And then another clear winner, oddly, was networking opportunities. And it wasn't just giving them the opportunity for networking, but we have a center on campus that will actually help you talk about how do you effectively network? How do you set up a LinkedIn profile? What should you be asking for? How do you engage? How do you follow up? I think as you get into the more seasoned professionals, we've kind of figured it out, right? But the younger generations who have spent their time attached to a phone, we think maybe it's inherent, and it's not. So giving them some of those social skills and helping them practice what their elevator pitch is, or, about me and what I like to do, is just good skill building to help them forward. And then I'll leave you with lessons learned, because, with any time you start something new, you're going to learn a lot of lessons, and that's good. We might as well share them to make sure that everybody thinks this through as well. Having faculty engagement is critical, right? You're getting access to labs. They're instructing the graduate students to mentor students through projects and research initiatives. So you need to get their buy-in early. We don't pay any of our faculty for these efforts, but we will give a small stipend that can go towards lab supplies and equipment. And they appreciate that, right? So something that kind of just defers the cost from other, funds that they need to spend. Undergraduate students will attend more events if you do them after hours. Sometimes our partners can only do weekday, and I get it, meaning like noon, 1 o'clock, but you will always have lower attendance than if you do something at 5:30. Communicate often. This one I will promise you is the bane of my existence. Getting people to read emails, right? You need faculty to respond with requests for projects, just as much as you need students to respond that they're going to be somewhere. Everybody's busy. So you need to make tell them you're going to communicate, but that they need to respond to your communications in a timely manner. So if we're doing an industry tour or we're having special guests come, we make them sign up. On our research generator, if you do not participate in enough of the professional development activities, you're not eligible for one of the research positions. Because if you can't bother to come to the meetings, we're going to reserve those research spots for the people who are fully engaged in the initiative. So it's just setting those expectations clearly up front, which links me to the being open to pivots. We were really clear with all of our partners up front. We're testing this. Things will work, some things won't work, and we'll pivot. Not trying to create enemies unintentionally on campus. We're trying to promise we were going to do things for a long haul. We're just testing and pivoting and soliciting feedback. So that has so far gone well across campus, and we've managed to kind of keep everybody, I'll say, pleased. Okay, I'll stop there. Any questions? Things I can share?
Yeah, thanks, Allison. I think Betsy did have to step away, but we definitely have some time now for any questions about this program at Purdue working with Eli Lilly and partners. I guess I have one. Is the sort of the student to FTE pathway, since we're talking about that today, is that mostly moving people into jobs at Eli Lilly and other partners, or is there an aspect that's also hiring within your group at Purdue?
Absolutely. So in our conversations with Lilly, everything's considered a win, right? We're just not a talent pipeline straight to Lilly. If they move on to graduate school, that's a win. If they move on from graduate school into academia and they're doing research in this space and they're going to put out publications that could down the line benefit pharmaceuticals, that's a win. So yeah, we don't have any, I'll say, true metrics that push us towards transitioning straight to FD. Now, in all honesty, Lilly would love it, right? Because I don't know how much you're familiar with the Indianapolis area, but they are building a new location and they're going to need 1,000 employees in about the next 2 years. So if campus has talent that fills that need and those students want to apply, that's excellent. So anything that we can do to, engage students and help build that interest, and help encourage them to kind of stay local, is a win, but there's no expectations on the students at all.
Maybe I could follow up on that.
Sure.
Because Michael kind of asked a question that intrigues me a lot because of some of the experiences I've had here at Utah. For a situation, if you've gone through it, where you do have somebody who does seem either prone or likely to land in an FTE on your institution's campus, has HR been able to support having appropriate job codes to bring somebody from that status of a part-time student worker or intern or whatever the right label is forward into a role? Have you gone through that? I guess is
Actually, good question. Absolutely. So in some cases, you'll see those as those postdocs, right? So they are students that finished their their graduate degrees, but their expertise was really important for the research that we are doing, and we needed to retain them. Postdoc is the easiest way to do that on campus for where they are. Our campus has modified how they're hiring faculty right now. So they're going after what they refer to as dream hires. So there's limited pool for like assistant level type of positions and things of that sort at the moment. Our other opportunity that we have is a research faculty role. So non-tenure track opportunity to bring in an assistant level of, and their focus is more on research and mentoring of students and less on curriculum. Mm-hmm.
So both of those would be more for hiring people coming out of a graduate degree, presumably. Do you hire people coming out of an undergraduate program as well?
We haven't been there long enough to see that yet. I would say there's probably a fit, yes, but it's more a matter of figuring out what we're looking for, right? So could it be a lab manager type of exercise? So I'll give you one of the things we're working on. We do have it's a facility known as Bentley, hosts all of our core facilities, right? It is, though, a training that we're developing that's either going to be part of a summer or maybe a spring break, depending on how it falls next year. That is really to get them more detailed in how to use lab equipment, right? So that they can go on, not only if they go, out into industry, it's a good skill set to have, but it is a gap that we also have for resources internally. So, enable them to be lab managers or serve some of those roles in that space. Our unit as our own direct staff, we're like 6 people, so we don't have a lot of straight roles to fill of our own.
It's
And
true
again,
for many of us that we're in fairly small units of a few people to at most a few dozen, and not hiring tons of people every year necessarily.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. Now, I'll say Lilly has been generous, and they have offered us some targeted internships associated with the students in our curriculum beyond what they do in their traditional like industrial roundtable, going around every year and kind of doing their normal internship recruitment. They've done some targeted internship opportunities through us. It's something we don't really advertise for the students just because we have more students than we have capacity. And I don't want to get the optics that we're a backdoor way into getting an internship opportunity because they're very hard to come by. But it is something that Lilly has kind of offered to us in that capacity. We're just careful on how we promote it because I want people for the right reason, not the creative mechanism. So I want somebody who's passionate about research or passionate about engaging in these projects for whatever they're accomplishing. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Well, I'll stop sharing my screen. Oh, I think you already killed it off. Right?
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Oh, I thought
perfect.
you had, but anyway, it's gone. Yeah, so thank you, Allison, for joining us today and presenting. So before we go into Stephen's talk, we have some time now for open discussion about sort of what you have at your own institution. So I know, Brian, you shared a bit in the past, but you might refresh us on Utah's status, others, about if you have pathways, if you have a student worker working on your team who you would want to hire into a full-time position when they graduate, if that's an option, if you have positions that are suitable for a recent graduate, if you have a pathway to make that possible.
So sure, I can kind of recap. So most of the students we're hiring are undergraduates, and we have 4 of them kind of on hand right now of our full-time staff that came through that program. And I'd say that 3 of those 4 things accidentally worked out, meaning by the time we were trying to hire them, they had accrued enough experience with us, or they were at or past their graduation date and everything else, where we had the right job codes available on campus. But one of the things I've bumped into is with this most recent one was not finding a job code and kind of finding a very strong reluctance from our HR to help us find a gap. We were left with kind of the circumstance of get a VP approval, which is how we solved it, or kind of have to tell the person, sorry, go somewhere else and get 2 years of experience and then come back. And that's what I don't want to do, because you'll just lose them and never get them back. So we're trying to make it a kind of a direct, conscious part of our program to look for positions we see opening up, and if we have existing students that would be good matches, and start engaging with them to see if that interests them. But obviously, I think, as we are all likely have experienced, is that's a smaller percentage of the number of students you're churning through. But it has been very valuable for us to build talent.
Thanks. Others who've had students become full-time members of their team? Or have tried, maybe been unsuccessful at getting the right job codes and positions available. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you on our team, we just don't really have positions that someone coming out of undergrad is hireable into. Exactly sort of what you said, Brian. I'm glad to hear that you managed to work it out sometimes, but we don't have that sort of entry-level position in place on our team. Certainly other parts of IT do. And that might be a pathway of someone going there. And I know our networking team has done a great job of having undergraduate students, sometimes co-op students, work with them, join full-time, who've become some great network engineers on our campus. But our team on research computing hasn't really had that.
Also, I just want to add that our team at RCC is the same. I don't think we've ever had any undergrad joining our team after graduation. We did have master's students, but not undergrads. Because it's the same as what you said, the level of the expertise it needs is still, it's beyond their skill set.
What sort of positions did the master students go into?
Mostly data science. Like that, we have a few data scientists in our team, and they usually are pretty good in taking over those positions. But again, that happens like once every like what 3 years, so it's not that frequent.
So I'll speak for myself. So I think going back to what Michael said, I think some of the hindrance to research computing hiring, whether grad student or undergrad student, is generally from our institution limited by how much money you have available to pay for the graduate student or undergrad. But from my past experience, the effective use of undergraduate student, which I've mentored some, especially as a PhD student, was effectively for optimizing code. So undergraduate in computer science, and we were pretty much a theoretical chemistry group. All our GPU's application, the optimization conversion from all CPU to GPU was done by graduate students completely from scratch. And then optimization, parallelization, yes, they do that. They already have a background. They necessarily do not understand the science, but they can do the optimization and somebody runs the experiment and verify the result. And then they go through and pick out and find out where the errors are coming from, especially if you have some inconsistency when you repeat the computation over and over. Yes, data science is equally one other area where undergrad and grad student can help a lot. But here at NC State, whenever we have a grad student, especially on the HPC group, it's usually the website, collecting data, or some low-hanging fruit that we want to take away from the people doing the support so they can focus on more complex tasks.
Any other comments before we move on to our next speaker? Especially if anyone has worked with industry student-to-FTE pipelines, like what Allison shared with Eli Lilly.
Can I make one more comment? To that point, I would say be open to exploring industry partnerships because all industry is looking for talent. So anything that you help give them from a skill set that will benefit them, whether it be the undergraduate or graduate level. Yes, Lilly's big and has opportunities, but we have conversations with healthcare partners. Right, we're in a healthcare realm. So healthcare partners, though, other academic institutions, device manufacturers, whatever the case may be, a lot of different people that are all excited for what can we do to help them engage talent for their pipeline. So even if it's more of an informal conversation and ways to network and do a round table or something of the sort to start to bring them together so they get those touch points. Ours is big, I get that, and kind of extensive, but if you're looking for a lighter lift option, some of those opportunities are still really valuable, and just that face time with an industry partner can be engaging for the students and a win-win on both sides.
Thank you, Allison, and everyone who shared. Let's stop the recording now.